We get that feeling like the world's just a little too much.
Yeah.
Just spinning a little too fast.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
This deep dive.
Yeah.
Because the source we have for you today asks this really thought-provoking question. What if that feeling of unrest you have, that just kind of constant unsettledness, isn't coming from the world outside of you, but is actually like a signal from within? Like something deeper is trying to get your attention.
Yeah, I think that's an experience a lot of people can relate to. And it ties into that search for calm that so many of us are on. We think if we could just get that promotion or that perfect vacation or even just have a day where nothing goes wrong, then we'll finally feel it. But it's like trying to grab onto smoke,
Yeah, it's so elusive.
It is.
Like you think you have and then poof, it's gone.
Right.
And then even when things are quiet on the outside, have you ever noticed that there's still this sort of underlying hum of unease? Like deep down, something still feels off. It kind of makes you wonder if real lasting peace is even possible, or if it's just this nice idea, but not really attainable.
And that's exactly what we're going to explore in this deep dive. What if that deep, unshakable calm isn't something you find out there in the world, but it's something you cultivate from within? Something inside of you that is strong enough to weather any storm life throws your way.
That's a really powerful image. So for this deep dive, we're going deep into this insightful YouTube video transcript.
Okay.
And we're going to try to understand how you can actually build that inner resilience, that inner peace. And the idea at the core of it is maybe true calm is less about trying to control everything happening around you and more about changing how you experience everything on the inside.
I like that. It's about shifting your perspective. And the source material really gets into this by talking about how constantly seeking peace externally might just be setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment.
Yeah.
It's like you're on this endless quest, always thinking, once I get this sorted out or achieve that goal, then I'll be able to relax. But there's always going to be something else.
Right.
Okay?
It never ends. It's like the source says, it's a game rigged against you, a chase with no finish line. And it makes sense when you think about it. The world is constantly in flux,
Yes.
always changing.
Right.
So trying to manage every little thing out there just to get some inner peace, that sounds exhausting.
It does. It's not a sustainable approach. And I think a powerful point the source makes is this analogy. Two people face the exact same hardship. One completely crumbles under the pressure. The other one somehow manages to stay strong.
Okay.
And the difference wasn't the hardship itself, but their internal response to it. How they made sense of their pain, how they processed it all internally.
So how they reacted to it on the inside.
Exactly.
Not the external event itself.
And I think the takeaway for our listeners is that this internal response is key. It's not necessarily the event that steals your peace, but how you interpret it. What you do with those feelings on the inside.
Okay, so let's get into the internal stuff. The force describes thoughts as this relentless tide, constantly pulling you toward worry and sadness. I think most of us can relate to that, right? Feeling bombarded by negative thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. It's like you're being swept away, right? You get caught in that current and you're just being pulled along. But the source offers a different way of relating to these thoughts. Instead of fighting them, what if you take a step back and just observe? Realizing you're not the water itself, you're the shore.
I like that. You're not the thoughts themselves, you're the observer.
Exact. It's about creating a little space. You don't have to believe every thought that pops into your head.
Right.
And it's not assuming those thoughts are the absolute truth about you or your situation.
It's a huge shift in perspective.
It is. The source also talks about how we tend to fight or numb our feelings. We push them down, ignore them, but the more you resist them, the stronger they become.
It's like they turn into chains.
Exactly, binding.
Why do we do that, though? Why do we resist our own feeling?
I think it's partly because as a society, we're often told to be positive or stay in control.
Right, like showing your feelings is a weakness.
Yeah, but what the source suggests is that it's this very resistance that actually gives those negative emotions power over you. If you can acknowledge them, allow them to be there without judging them, you can actually lessen their grip.
So there's power in acceptance. Now, what about the past? I think a lot of us carry the weight of the past with us.
Oh, absolutely. And the source describes it as this ghost that we keep inviting to sit at our table, replaying old hurts and whispering that you're still that same person who was wounded way back when.
Ooh.
It's a haunting image, right?
It is. It's like you can't escape it.
Yeah, and the source redefines freedom for us. It's not about living a life where nothing bad ever happens. It's about being able to stand in the rain and feel the drops without drowning.
Wow, that's so powerful.
It is.
Right. It's like you don't have to erase the past or avoid difficulties to be free.
Exactly. It's about being present with all of it, the good and the bad, without being overwhelmed. The Source beautifully puts it as the choice to face what comes up within you, not as a captor, but as a guest passing through your vast inner landscape.
Oh, it's about observing those feelings, those experiences, recognizing they're temporary. They'll pass. Now, the Source also talks about breaking free from these limiting narratives.
Yes.
These stories we tell ourselves about who we are.
Right. The script that you've maybe picked up from childhood, your parents, your friends, your past mistakes.
Like you're playing a role that you didn't even write.
Exactly. And you're just kind of going through the motions, living on autopilot, reacting based on these old patterns. And the Source asks this a really important question. Is this really you in this script? Are you just a character, or are you the one observing the whole play?
And that brings up another interesting point.
Yeah.
The Source talks about how silence can feel really uncomfortable.
Oh, it can be terrifying for some people.
Why is that? Why is silence so threatening?
Well, I think it's because it strips away all the distractions. It leaves you alone with yourself, with the raw pulse of your own existence, as the Source puts it.
And for a lot of us, that can feel like too much.
It can.
So we fill our lives with noise, with busyness, with anything to avoid that quiet.
Right. Social media, TV, anything to keep our minds occupied.
But the Source offers a different way of looking at it. What if that darkness, that silence, isn't empty at all, but full of possibility? A space to finally just breathe. It's reframing that fear of the unknown, seeing it not as a threat, but as an opportunity.
And I think that leads us to this idea of detachment and acceptance, really crucial for inner.
Yeah.
The Source clarifies that detachment isn't about being cold or uncaring.
Right?
It's about freeing yourself from that lie that your happiness depends on life going exactly the way you want it to go.
Like everything has to go according to plan.
Yeah. Letting go of that need for control, for approval. And the Source says that when you do that, you step into this stillness that no one can touch.
And the Source also talks about pain, which is something we all try to avoid.
Naturally.
But it reframes pain as this messenger with lessons wrapped up in its sting.
Wow.
And the key isn't to stop the pain altogether, but to listen to what it's trying to tell you. Let
Yeah.
it shape you without breaking you.
So it's about understanding the message behind the pain.
Yeah. Because your first instinct might be to just push it away, numb it.
Right.
But the Source says that by acknowledging it, trying to understand it, you actually gain valuable insights.
You build resilience. And I think that's a perfect segue into the next point. The Source challenges this idea that peace means a life free of problems.
Oh yeah, like a fairy tale.
Exactly. Real peace, the Source says, isn't about perfection. It's about having that quiet resolve to stand in the mess and not let it own you.
So being in the middle of the chaos, but not letting it consume you,
Exactly.
you're still standing strong.
You are.
Yeah.
And it talks about this fear, the ego's fear of a self without boundaries, without those stories we tell ourselves.
Right, like if we let go of that, who are we?
Exactly. But the Source argues that letting go of that story doesn't lead to nothingness. It opens up this vastness within you, this space to become more than you ever imagined. And it uses the analogy of nature. Fires leading to new growth, storms nourishing the earth. Struggles aren't just random, they serve a purpose.
Okay, so difficulties are part of the natural cycle of growth.
They are. The Source then asks us to consider how much we brace ourselves for the next problem, like worrying about it ahead of time will somehow protect us.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time.
We all do. But what if we dropped the shield and trusted that we're built to bend, not break?
So it's about trusting in your own inner strength.
Yeah, that you can adapt and bounce back. The Source also addresses that inner critic we all have, that voice constantly pointing out our flaws.
Oh, that voice is so loud sometimes.
It is, right? But the Source says it's like a parrot. It's just repeating lines it's learned. You can actually change the script, make it a more supportive voice.
So turn that negative self-talk into something positive.
Exactly. And speaking of changing the script, the Source reminds us that peace isn't waiting for us in the future. It's available right now in this moment.
Oh, the present moment.
Yes, not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, but being here now.
It's so easy to forget that.
I know. It takes practice.
Yeah.
And then it redefines resilience for us. It's not just about getting through tough times. It's about alchemizing, turning pain into something strong and new.
So not just surviving, but thriving.
Exactly. And the Source makes it clear that those who find lasting calm aren't the ones who avoid challenges, but the ones who learn to work with them.
They embrace the challenges as opportunities for growth.
They do. The Source also points out that if you're constantly searching for something out there to fix your inner unrest, it's just a reflection of what's going on inside.
So it's not about changing the external world, it's about changing how we relate to it.
Exactly. The answer lies within how you see yourself, how you meet those external reflections.
So much of it is about self-awareness and self-acceptance.
It is. And the source describes control as a thief, stealing your peace while promising protection. True strength, it says, isn't about gripping the reins of life, but surrendering to what is.
So letting go of the need to control everything.
Exactly, because often that creates more anxiety. Surrender, on the other hand, can lead to acceptance and ultimately more peace. And then the source talks about how the beliefs you hold on to, the fears you nurture, they actually shape the reality you experience.
Okay, so our beliefs actually influence what we see in the world.
They do. They act like filters. And the source suggests that by peeling back those layers of beliefs and fears, you won't find emptiness, but clarity, a clarity that's always been there.
So it's about questioning those beliefs, those filters.
Exactly.
To see things more clearly.
Yes, and the source explains that sometimes we're drawn to noise and distractions because it's easier than facing those deeper questions that come up in quiet moments.
It's like we're afraid of what we might find.
Yeah, but the source reframes those questions not as threats, but as invitation to understand yourself better.
So those questions, even when they're uncomfortable, can lead to self-discovery.
They can.
And growth. Now, the source reminds us that life doesn't promise calm waters all the time. Instead, it offers raw, unscripted waves.
Right?
But within that unpredictability, there's an opportunity to build a calm that's strong and steady.
Because it's anchored within you, not dependent on external circumstances.
So it's about developing that inner anchor that keeps you grounded no matter what.
Exactly. That still point amidst all the chaos.
And that's a really powerful shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Seeing peace not as something you have to chase, but as something you cultivate within.
Absolutely. You're not at the mercy of external circumstances.
You have the power to create your own inner peace.
You do. And the source acknowledges that many people avoid this kind of inner work. They choose distraction.
Yeah, it's easier.
It is. But your presence here, listening to this, suggests you recognize there's a deeper truth to it.
We're on this journey together.
We are. And the source describes peace not as a reward you earn, but as a fire you tend, fueled by every choice you make to look inward. And it grows not from what you cling to, but from what you let go of.
So letting go is key.
It is. The source positions us at a crossroads between that familiar noise and a silence that can transform you from the inside out. And it encourages you to step into that quiet, claim the power that's been waiting within you. It suggests that maybe the search for calm feels so frustrating because it's buried beneath layers of self-protection.
Layers we've built to shield ourselves from pain.
Exactly. But those layers can also hide our natural capacity for peace.
So the journey inward is about peeling back those layers.
It is. And the source also points out that the weight you feel, that restlessness, is not necessarily the world pressing down on you, but the tension of your own mind resisting what is.
It's us fighting reality.
We are. And it says, true living starts when you stop fighting and simply observe. Seeing those shadows of fear and doubt for what they are, just stories.
Stories we can change.
We can. And the source challenges the fear that letting go means losing something, suggesting it might actually lead you to a more complete version of yourself. And those past hurts, they're not flaws, they're maps, guiding you toward a deeper strength.
So our pain can actually be a source of wisdom.
It can. The source then redirects the search for peace from those external things to that space inside you that you maybe haven't fully inhabited yet. And it explains that the chaos you see outside often reflects the turmoil within.
So if we change our inner world,
the outer world changes too.
It's all connected.
It is. And finally, the source defines true freedom, not as escaping life's difficulties, but as freedom from the meaning you've given them.
So it's not about what happens, but how we react.
Exactly. It uses this powerful image of you standing in the middle of a storm, and amidst all that chaos, you can still hear your own steady breath.
You're grounded, centered.
You are. So here we are, at the same point the source leaves us, with this question. Will you keep running from that silence within? Or will you face it and discover the peace that's been calling you all along?
That's a powerful question to consider. Maybe the very thing we've been avoiding is the key to finding the peace we so desperately crave.
Maybe. And it might be that the journey to a more peaceful life isn't about changing the world, but about changing your relationship with yourself.
Changing our inner world.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it's given you some new insights into your own journey toward peace.
Yeah.
See you next time.